At this point, the iPhone is more than just a phone. It's a symbol. For nearly 2 decades, it shaped the way of how we communicate, consume, and connect. It's been the gold standard of tech design, a cultural icon, and for Apple, it's the most lucrative product they have. But as we inch closer to the launch of the iPhone 17 Pro, there's a quiet but powerful shift happening. Not necessarily in hardware, but in Apple's posture towards the iPhone itself. This could be the moment Apple redefines what the iPhone actually means, not just what it can do. First of all, the iPhone no longer leads, it reinforces. When Steve Jobs introduced the original iPhone in 2007, he called it 3 devices in one: an iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. What he was really doing was announcing a new era. The iPhone didn't just disrupt, it completely reinvented what we thought about a phone could be. Over time, it became a vessel for our social lives, our work, our identities. But in recent years, the iPhone hasn't been disrupting much. And maybe that's by design. With each new release, Apple has leaned into a strategy of perfectionism over reinvention. The design language is familiar, the software is polished, and the changes are increasingly iterative. It's not that the iPhone is bad. You could argue it's better than ever. It's just that it no longer leads the conversation. Instead, it reinforces Apple's larger vision: the seamless ecosystem, interconnected devices, and services that flow from one screen to another. This marks a philosophical shift. The iPhone isn't the disruptor anymore, it's the backbone. In a company now pouring resources into AI, wearable, and spatial computing, the iPhone 17 Pro might quietly mark the moment it settles fully into that role. Now let's talk about the Pro dilemma. There's something interesting happening with Apple's naming convention, specifically with the word Pro. Once reserved for true professional grade tools, Pro has become Apple's way of saying the expensive one, or the slightly better one. What was once a line in the sand between creatives and casual users is now more of a marketing flourish. The Pro line in particular has fallen into a predictable rhythm. An extra camera, different materials, maybe a chip bump, but there's very little about the Pro experience that feels professional, in my opinion. The 17 Pro could change that, or at least reckon with it. In a world where pros are no longer just filmmakers and designers, but also YouTubers, remote workers, mobile developers, content creators, Pro needs a redefinition. What does a professional device look like in a culture where phones are creative studios, editing bays, and business hubs? It's not just about power. It's about workflows, ecosystems, and flexibility. Something the Mac can do, yes, but iOS and iPadOS devices lack. The turning point here could be Apple deciding what the Pro in iPhone Pro actually stands for in 2025 and beyond. Now, what about the iPhone's legacy and the future beyond that? For most of its life, the iPhone has been Apple's main event. It's the keynote closer, the flagship, the thing everything else orbits around. But lately, that gravitational pull has started to shift. With devices like the Apple Watch Ultra, the AirPods Maxes, and of course the Vision Pro, Apple is building a broader hardware constellation, each device serving as a specific lifestyle or niche. The iPhone still connects all of it, but it begins to feel less like the future and more like the foundation. The 17 Pro could be Apple acknowledging this publicly, not through dramatic redesign, but through a repositioning. It doesn't need to be the device that amazes us every year. It can be the stable core around which new, more experimental designs can revolve. That doesn't make it less important, it makes it mature. And maybe that's the next evolution for the iPhone. Not louder or bolder, but more intentional and more rooted. We might look back at the 17 Pro and realize that this is where the iPhone stopped trying to be the future and started holding it all together. So what about the bigger picture? There will always be new features, new colors, new camera tricks. But those things aren't what make a product meaningful in the long term. What matters more is what a product represents, what it tells us about a company's direction, about our own expectations, about how we live with our technology. The iPhone 17 Pro could be a turning point, not because it's radically different, but because it isn't. Because at the moment, Apple seems to be asking, what does the iPhone need to be now? What does it mean to make an iPhone in an era of AI, mixed reality, and spatial computing? Maybe the 17 Pro won't be the best iPhone ever, but it could be the most honest one that embraces its roles and steps aside from the spotlight and helps Apple into its next chapter.